Good morning, everyone. Please take a seat. Good morning, everyone, and welcome in Brussels for the second edition of the Social Innovation Forum. Good to see you all, and for some of you, good to see you again. We are gathered here for another 2 days of connections, collaborations, discussions, and sharing of our experiences and ideas on social innovation in Europe. And we have plenty of compelling reasons to do so, because, as you all know, social innovation represents a huge potential to face the upcoming changes of our time. And you are, each one of you, a driver of that innovation in Europe. This conference is held under the wings of the European Commission, DG Employment, and ESFA, the Lithuanian European Social Fund Agency, that has been entrusted to implement the ESF Plus Social Plus initiative. My name is Wim de Vilder, and my usual day job is actually in the building next door at the Belgian public broadcaster VRT, where I am a host for current affairs programs on television. But today I'm very happy to be not over there, but over here with you to moderate this second Social Innovation Forum. Last year, this event brought together, and for the very first time, all actors involved in transnational activities under the Social Innovation Plus initiative. And it was the occasion, of course, to start exploring the potential of social innovation within ESF Plus projects and programs. As the ESF Plus offers us a gateway to adopt social innovation approaches, thanks to special priorities and strengths in its regulation, we engaged you, ESF Plus managing authorities, implementing bodies, beneficiaries, all of you, to discuss how we can actually activate social innovation in our work. We landed, I believe, on the agreement that synergies between social themes and approaches, partnerships between multiple actors were key to successfully and innovatively address complex social issues. Now this year, we will extend our exploration to see how we can build these synergies and partnerships within administrations and bodies implementing ESF Plus. So how can we push social innovation further within our organizations? What skills do we need? What working environment do we need to develop to foster a culture of social innovation in our projects and in our teams? We will try to answer these questions and many others during the 2 upcoming days. Throughout this event, we will feature a series of insightful presentations, engage in meaningful discussions, participate in hands-on workshops, of course, and we will discover promising practices from the Social Innovation Match database. Now, shall we look at the agenda for today? To kick off our event, we will start with some inspiring remarks from Mario Nava, Director General of DG Employment. After that, we will feature an interesting keynote right on the topic of this year's forum, how to build functional ecosystems that address the skills gap. Before the coffee break, you will have the opportunity to learn more about 2 interesting practices from the Social Innovation Match database. After the coffee break, we'll dive into the dynamic panel discussion focused on turning social innovation projects into real-world solutions. Then we'll enjoy a well-earned lunch break. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, the first workshops are planned, in which we will review shared events and outputs, discuss further activities of ESF Plus communities of practice and networks. 2 hours later, after another coffee break, the second session of workshops will focus on developing skills for social innovation across various themes, and before you know it, it'll be time for dinner and a hopefully nice evening. By the way, we will report back about the outcomes of the different workshops from today during our plenary session tomorrow. So I'd like to ask, are you ready to immerse yourself in the world of social innovation and explore it further? I hope you all are. There's just one more thing I would like to highlight before we make time for the opening remarks, and that is the social innovation market. Starting at 1 o'clock, you will have the opportunity to meet and engage with social innovators. In the lobby, you'll find more than 30 stands, each representing a unique project dedicated to addressing key social challenges. So once you've enjoyed your lunch, please take some time to wander through the stands, discover new ideas, ask questions, and perhaps even find opportunities for future collaboration. It's high time for the opening remarks for this second Social Innovation Forum in Brussels, and for that I would like to give the floor, so to say, to the Director General at DG Employment at the European Commission, Mario Nava. He sent us a video this morning.
Good morning, everybody, dear innovators, dear colleagues. A very warm welcome to the Social Innovation Forum here in Brussels. Before we dive into today's program, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the future of the European Union, the challenges ahead, and why I believe that social innovation is crucial to achieving our goal of a truly social Europe. This forum takes place at an important juncture in time. We will soon have a new European Commission. We already have a new European Parliament, and our President has laid out fresh political priorities that align with our work. We need to make Europe more competitive, but we also need to further strengthen our European way of life and our quality of life, how we live and work together, how we ensure social cohesion. And for this, we need to reinforce the principles enshrined in the European Pillar of Social Rights. Our President also highlighted the importance of being prepared, and it is no coincidence that the designated EVP has preparedness in her job title. Being ready to face changes, to thrive in a shifting world, and to build up resilience in time of uncertainty. We want to better understand the impact of the digital transition and artificial intelligence on work, on society, and on mental health. We will introduce an initiative on the right to disconnect. Climate change is another challenge we cannot ignore. We need to support our member states in dealing with the economic and social consequences of the climate crisis, and ensure that the transition is just for everyone. Now, more than ever, we must keep our promise to help at least 15 million Europeans out of poverty. The new Commission will therefore work on an anti-poverty strategy. Throughout this all, supporting children and young people remains our priority. Their health, their happiness, their future opportunities are at the heart of our work. And so we will strengthen the Child Guarantee, the focus of our new social innovation call in 2025. Social innovation will be essential in tackling these challenges. We need new ideas, new ways of thinking, and bolder solutions. So how can we support your work? My team and I see our role as helping you to connect with each other, learn from what's already working, and find ways to scale up those solutions. We do this through communities of practice and networks where many of you are already involved. Let me personally thank you for your dedication and energy. We are also providing funds through our transnational calls to share ideas of knowledge across Europe. Building bridges across countries, this is truly the beauty and added value of our work. Of course, our work complements the fantastic things many of you are already doing on the national and regional levels, with 1.8 billion euro from the ESF Plus dedicated to supporting social innovation across the EU. This is a very significant investment that we hope will make lasting an impact on social policies. But for this to work, we need each other. We need you, the innovators, to keep trying new ideas, learning from each other, and finding those rare, exceptional solutions that lead to real change. Because that is what social innovation is all about, isn't it? Catching lightning in a bottle, finding something rare, refining it, and sharing it across borders to create real impact. Not just for individuals, but for the entire communities and society as a whole. I see this forum as a chance to build those bridges across Europe and together tackle the social challenges we are facing today. Thank you all very much for coming today, and I really trust that you will have a wonderful, innovative time and great day. Thank you.
Thanks to Mario Nava for the opening remarks, and let me just stress again and highlight that social innovation practitioners will present their initiatives later today and tomorrow, and also during the social innovation market right after your lunch. I would now like to give the floor to Lina Nevinskienė, Director of the European Social Fund Agency, to highlight ESFA's view on the importance of this conference. Please.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, welcome to this today event here in Brussels, bringing together representatives from all member states, managing authorities, NGO, civil society, and other stakeholders. It is a huge honor to stand before you today at the second Social Innovation Forum 2024, the largest event of the year dedicated to social innovation across Europe. I am proud that the Lithuanian European Social Fund Agency has been entrusted to lead the implementation of the ESF Plus Social Innovation Plus initiative. This initiative represents a shared commitment to building a more socially inclusive, resilient, and innovative Europe. This forum is the culmination of months of hard work and collaboration. It's time to celebrate what we have achieved, and more importantly, to find our way forward as we face the biggest social challenges of our time. The Social Innovation Plus initiative is central to Europe's goals of creating positive changes in employment, social protection, and skills development. With a budget of almost 200 million for the 2021-2027 period, we have a unique opportunity to speed up the move towards a fairer, greener, and more digital Europe, aligned with the European Pillar of Social Rights. Let me briefly highlight the two key pillars of this initiative. First, our transnational calls for proposals. These calls support projects aimed at transferring and scaling up social innovation that have already demonstrated success. They encourage transnational cooperation, mutual learning, and the exchange of best practices across borders. This collaboration is crucial in addressing challenges that transcend national boundaries, such as unemployment, social inequality, and the need for a more adaptable workforce. We believe these projects will drive tangible change, ensuring equitable social protection and fostering a skilled and resilient European workforce for the future. Second, the knowledge sharing. This is an engine for scaling up proven solutions in employment, education, and social inclusion. It brings together communities of practice and networks that facilitate knowledge sharing and capacity building across Europe. The knowledge sharing empowers beneficiaries to engage in mutual learning sessions, capacity building activities, and seminars. It consolidates promising social innovation practices from across Europe, enabling all stakeholders to work together to improve people's lives. This collaborative approach is essential in accelerating innovation and ensuring that we tackle social challenges in a way that is both sustainable and inclusive. Together, these efforts create a dynamic, flexible, and responsive social innovation ecosystem. This is not just about funding individual projects. It's about building a foundation for lasting social impact. Looking ahead, I am excited about what we can achieve together. We have the resources, the networks, and the collective will to create a Europe where innovation drives social progress, ensuring equal opportunities for all. But our journey is just beginning. The work we do in social innovation requires us to be bold, to think creatively, and to take risk in order to achieve transformative change. And it requires all of us, governments, NGOs, and civil society, to come together in the spirit of partnerships. As Jamie Notta wisely said, innovation is change that unlocks new value. This is exactly what we are striving for here today, creating the kind of change that unlocks new possibilities for a better, fairer society. I want to take this moment to thank all of you for your dedication to this cause. Your effort, your passion, and your commitment make social innovation not just a possibility, but a reality. In closing, let's welcome the opportunities ahead. Let's keep pushing the limits of what we can achieve and work together to build a Europe that is inclusive and innovative. The future of social innovation depends on our teamwork, vision, and determination. And I am confident that together we can achieve extraordinary things. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina, Nevinskienė. I think this has given us enough motivation to really kick off the work now of delving into the role of social innovation and fostering collaboration in that field. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you now our esteemed keynote speaker for today, Ciprian Stănescu. As the president of Social Innovation Solutions and the Global Shapers Bucharest Hub, Ciprian stands at the forefront of academia, of civil society, and entrepreneurship at the same time. His extensive experience in Central and Eastern Europe has been instrumental in identifying and transforming innovative models into reality. Today, Ciprian will delve into the essence of social innovation, setting it apart from traditional methods and shedding light on the pivotal role of key innovators. And his presentation will cover Europe's leadership in social innovation, the challenges faced by EU innovators, and effective strategies for fostering and managing innovation based on his, let's say, Eastern European model. Please join me in welcoming Ciprian Stănescu.
Good morning. I almost said, can you hear me? But I can hear myself quite well as well. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here. Quite a strike we had today, so I'm very happy to see the room full. I was quite puzzled. I don't have my presentation to do this, but I hope we have it on the screen. But I think it's a good metaphor for what is that we're trying to achieve here. I presume the strikers in Brussels are doing this because they feel something is not working properly. I guess it's about salaries, but I might be very wrong. But I think it is about salaries and how they feel they are not perhaps treated as they would like to be. So I think it's a good metaphor to start the day. Now, if I can have the presentation, that would be great. If not, I can just talk as well. Thank you so much. Now, I come from the other side. You can meet, I think, people similar to me during the lunch when there's about 30 social innovators or social entrepreneurs or NGO leaders that you can meet. So I am not here to tell you from a management authority perspective or from a funder's perspective how things could look. I'm here to leave you with more questions and less answers, and I think that's great. And to give you some examples from the other side, from the work that we do. This is a very long title of a presentation, but I am a puzzle expert. I have been training for the past 9 years in puzzles because I have 2 daughters, and they like puzzles a lot. But there's something about puzzles that puzzled me, and puzzles me, and will puzzle me into the future, which is how can you make a puzzle if you don't have all the pieces and you have no clue what the image at the end needs to look like? And I think this is what social innovation in Europe and around the world is. There is no puzzle that we can make now. We always make the puzzle. So it is a building exercise together in uncertainty. Or if the image is not clear, that doesn't mean that we don't need to do it. It's just that sometimes it's okay to say we don't know how to do things. This is a bit about what my invitation to you is to explore today. What is and what it is not really social innovation. Who are these social innovators that we're all talking about? How and if Europe is the leader in social innovation, some of the challenges that I see as somebody working on the ground in Europe, how and why and who outsources this, so how can we outsource social innovation, and some Eastern European models to go to. Now a bit about myself so that you know where to take me from. I have been very happy to live past lives in global organizations like the Aspen Institute and the Ashoka, and the World Economics Forum Global Shapers Community. And I'm happy to have made my mind work better through various schools that you can see there. But what really I think defines me is the Social Innovation Solutions organization or ecosystem of organizations that I built. I was joking a couple of weeks ago with the organizers and said maybe somebody invited me because my organization's name is Social Innovation Solutions, but must be something more than that. Now, a bit about what we do in Romania and many other countries in Central and Eastern Europe is we took upon ourselves a challenge called climate change. We're not an environmental organization, but we think this is one of the greatest challenges of our lives and our children's lives, etc. So we either do events like this, called like the Climate Change Summit, which gathers even a global audience of almost 1 million people. But we have educational programs for SMEs and other NGOs. We're a transformator, if you like. That's not really a word, but you'll get to that sooner or later. But the question is, and I ask myself this question, what am I? Am I a social entrepreneur or a social innovator? Do I present myself as a social innovator when a lot of people are saying, wow, Ciprian, you're doing social innovation? Or am I a social entrepreneur that just does that? Or can a social entrepreneur like myself create social innovation? Is this something that is within my reach? Or can a pure, let's call it, a business-oriented entrepreneur create social innovation? Or can a ministry create social innovation? And I think all of us, in the end, can. Now, these are some of the questions that I want to leave you with. There's 20 more to come. But I would just like to focus in the next minutes on the last sort of one, which is not a question in the end. Skills for innovation and social innovation. I think that the skills that we need to invest in or to develop within our continent and across the world are similar to what you have when it comes to tech innovation. But they're quite different and quite dynamic. And they need something that we don't have, which is patience. Sometimes we just need to understand that social innovation takes more time, significantly more time, than tech innovation. So when we create the funds, the programs, and the mechanism to support social innovators, I think it's great if we do something that sometimes I feel we or you don't do enough, which is to talk. I do feel, and I cannot talk on behalf of any social innovator or a social entrepreneur but myself and my team, but I think there is a missing piece of the puzzle, which is more conversation with European agencies and European institutions, and even more conversations among ourselves. Now, can you see these people? This is the puzzle, right? So how does a social innovator look like? If you can just give me, who wants to tell us like one sentence or one word? This is your turn now. I will not continue unless somebody speaks. So. 2 eyes, 2 hands. Okay, that's very biological. Anything else? How do you, well, what are the skill sets? What are the, so let's pick maybe somebody from that side of the room, besides Romanians. Thank you. Huh? Creativity, thank you. Okay, creativity. Can you fund creativity? Can you actually create funds or push funds that boost creativity? I think not really. You can create environments that are productive to creativity, much like social innovation, which requires creativity. I think what we're missing, again, is patience. Now, for many of us, or for many of you, but I see myself as you as well, we have an image of a social innovator in mind. You all have. It's very different, probably, in the room. But they might look like these people. Do you recognize anyone in the image? Curious. If you know anyone, can you raise your right or left hand? Okay, so that is about 1.2% of the room. It doesn't mean that they should be known to you, but it helps me to present them better. Now, we have a Buddhist monk, number 1, who is a Belgian, so I picked Bart Witteens, who trains rats to detect landmines in African countries and to detect tuberculosis. Is this social innovation? No? Yes? Yes? Okay. It saves lives, millions of lives, literally. On the middle, we have Anabela Esteves from Spain. She is a survivor of domestic violence and has created networks in Spain and Latin America of women, of survivors of domestic violence. And she, through her work, empowers them to become free in the end, and changes legislation and so on. Is she a social innovator? Well, yes, trust me, she is. I know all of them. And on the far right, there's a gentleman from Germany. His name is Frank Hofmann, and he's a gynecologist. Can a gynecologist become a social innovator? Yes, but not really. Come on, let's be very frank. When you think of a social innovator, you don't think of a gynecologist from Germany. Well, what he has done, he realized that blind women have a tactile power, an ability, a special ability, to detect breast cancer in advance, and has changed legislation in Germany and other countries. These are what I see as social innovators. But do they fit who you thought of? I'm not sure. When I think of a social innovator, but I'm in the field, I think of people like them. But these 3 individuals are very different from each other, because social innovators and social innovation is very different, not just in time, but in geographies as well. So these are some of the skill sets, let's say, that I feel social innovators have. They're visionary problem solvers. They have a collaborative mindset because it doesn't really work on your own. They need to be adaptable and experimental because everything changes very fast. They obviously need to be impact-oriented. They need to think in systems, and systemic thinking is crucial for this. And to change a system, you need to understand the system. And they're what we call future makers. They don't just look at the problems of the past and try to fix them, but they look at the problems that we will most likely have in the future. So they're future makers. But there's something, do you think this gentleman exists in reality? Is he a social innovator? Could he be, when you look at him? Is this a social innovator? Yes? No, it's a fake image. It's an AI-based image. This person doesn't exist. The main characteristic that I see of what social innovators have and are is rarity. They are rare. Because if they would be not rare, we would have no problem at all. It's rare to become this, the other slide, it's very difficult. And I don't think there is one person that really has all these skills. But they're like tigers, white tigers, of course, or tigers per se, which are rare. So when we, as I would understand it, if something is rare, We must treasure it, right? But we must not probably believe that we can create social innovators just by putting down money. It's a very complicated task, and it is probably the most complicated task that I have ever seen in Europe. It's easier to decarbonize than to create social innovators. But we do it. Europe, I think, is at the forefront of social innovation across the world. I think we show not just resilience and capacity to transform systems, but we have developed something that has never existed in the world and most likely will never exist in the future, which is, of course, the bureaucratic institutions of the European Union, which we, from the other side, sometimes have challenges working with. But because you have 27, 30, 35 countries perhaps in the future that need to work together to create something that is almost impossible to create and to work for so many decades, yes, it takes time. It is slower because we, on the other side, we're used to doing things also fast. We're highly adaptable, we're experimental, and all the other things. But I think that what the European Union's institutions and other international organizations have done for social innovation in Europe is amazing. But, there's always a but, right? It's not enough. And we all know it's not enough, and that's why we meet here, probably. There's some challenges that I identified by talking with 14 or 13 social innovators, let's call them, right, from Central and Eastern Europe, and one public authority in Romania, to ask them in the preparation of this speech, what do they think or what do they feel is a challenge when it comes to social innovation in Europe. And most of the people that I talked to, when I told them, I think you're a social innovator, they said, no. I'm an NGO leader, I'm a social entrepreneur, I'm a professor. Most of them said, I would not dare to call myself a social innovator. It's so, no, I'm not that. So how can we make, this is not one of the challenges, this is a new one, how can we make social innovation a desire for children these days? Not just accidentally having one or two social innovators. Now, when it comes to definitions, I think we live in a world that is where definitions matter a lot, especially when it comes to funds. But we do have some form of, let's call it legal ambiguity in Europe. What is a social entrepreneur? What is social economy? Are you a social innovator? Can anyone be a social innovator? Do you need a stamp to be called a social innovator? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is what I would say, not just me, fragmented policy support. So yes, there is a European direction to do something in that way, but when it comes down to national states, it doesn't really work as we would like to. And there is a challenge in what we would call hybrid models. Social innovation is done by gynecologists, by NGO leaders, by professors, by anyone. But you need a business model to do that. You need money, people, organizations, structures. And these require different types of legal personalities, like NGOs, companies, etc. So there's ambiguity there as well. When it comes down to skills, I think we're here to talk about skills. There's significant skills shortage when it comes to scaling and growth management, financial management, a lot, and also policy navigation and advocacy. So these are the top three issues that I've seen across at least Central and Eastern Europe. When it comes to regulation, there's obvious challenges when it comes to predictability, but in particular social impact measurement. How do we measure, who measures, and who pays for the impact measurement? There's a challenge when it comes to pipeline. Not me, but some of the social innovators, they're not enough. So we do have a pipeline problem. That includes challenges when it comes to mental health of these people. It's really hard work. And those of you in the room that do similar things when it comes to social innovation understand it is hard. And it sounds good when you do good, but it's really hard and bad when you do it. then we do have challenges within our own national public authorities and a skills shortage there. And I can tell you in the break some amazing stories about public authorities in my country and their understanding of social innovation, and the lack of interdisciplinary teams that we do need. But the most complicated of all is that gentleman or lady, SROI, which is the return of investment. There's a huge complexity of data management that is expensive, and social innovators are required to prove their social impact. But first of all, they rarely really know how to measure, and secondly, it's quite expensive to do that, and thirdly, it takes time. A funding that is designed for 1 year and asks at the end impact results, when it comes to education, for example, is probably not very well thought of, because you need 3 to 5 years to actually see the impact of that investment. And then, of course, there's conservative public authorities that look at social innovation or social entrepreneurship and don't really make it a priority. Can we outsource it? Yes. And we're doing that in Europe. And there's many examples in the room of outsourcing social innovation. But what we do need more of is funds to do feasibility studies. Funding, scaling, not just through grants, but also through business mechanisms, to set realistic impact expectations, obviously, and to look at scaling through the many lenses that it has, which is adaptation and so on. I told you that I will also leave you with some questions to question the future, and I will not answer them. But perhaps sometimes we need to invest less in innovation, because how many new ideas can we really come up with? Because innovation in itself is rare, expensive, and complicated to control. But what if we need more adaptation of solutions? What if we need to also invest more in skills to adapt social innovation, not just to create social innovation? And what if we need a new breed, not bread, of social innovation implementers that could be the new social innovators? I have a case study to showcase these challenges, and the best way to do a case study is to put yourself on the line with all transparency. This is public, so it's going to be very interesting for some of my colleagues watching this as well. So I chose one of the social innovation solutions programs. It's called Sustainable Futures. And this is an educational program for SMEs and NGOs in sustainability. We believe one of the essential keys to a green Europe, ideally a green planet, is the business ecosystem that needs to be challenged to become greener, but also, let's call it, educated, similarly to the NGO world. And we do this in Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, and soon in Slovenia. So if you're in these countries, we'd be happy to have a call or a coffee with you later. Now, what we do, we have 2 educational programs that are free for users, the Sustainability Academy and Transformator. In Romanian, Bulgarian, and Slavic languages, Transformator is a word that makes sense. In English, not that much, but you get the point. Incubator, accelerator, Transformator, which helps SMEs and NGOs transform their business model into more sustainable ones. And the Sustainability Academy is a digital community that now, at the end of this year, will gather about 20,000 SMEs in these countries. It's also a marketplace, and it also offers grants, so we are granting sustainability challenges across this region. So some people in Romania 2 years ago said, this looks like a social innovation. This looks like something that works, because we had, let's say, impact to show us that. So we said, okay, let's scale it. How do you take this decision? This is not an easy decision, because to scale social innovation, you need scaling skills as well. It's not just, I have a great idea, so I'll just put it in Croatia and pray it works. It doesn't happen like that. So to take this decision was not an easy task for us, but it was an ambitious task. And the ambition is to scale across South Europe, from Portugal all the way to Greece, and Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa in the next 5 years. So what model of scaling to use? You know, there's license, there's franchising, there's a lot of, when you go to the technicality of scaling social innovation or scaling innovation or programs in the end, what is the model that you choose? So this was another complicated conversation. Now, this resulted in a feasibility analysis. And from the time we took the decision to scale to these countries, to the time that we have the data set from the feasibility analysis to see if this is going to work in countries like Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, and many others, it took us 8 months. Who funds this? Who would fund, I will not tell you who funds us, but that's not the point. But are there public funds to scale, to fund this, which is not scaling, is the preparation of scaling, which might have resulted in an answer that said, no, don't do it. It's the wrong time, it's the wrong people, it's the wrong context. So who funds failure in the end? You see down there, failure management, it's the last because it's the most important one. When we fund and create and scale social innovation within a country, within a region, within a continent, I think we need to be prepared to fund failure as well, not just success. Because usually in innovation, and in particular in entrepreneurship, failure is the rule, not the exception. Success is the exception. And this is how the world works, as you all know. Now, when it comes to scaling something like this, the model that we chose, and we're not sure if it really exists in the form that we have it, is that we went into these countries, we did a deep dive, we have interacted with 20 to 40 organizations and public authorities in each country, and told them, we have these educational programs, and we want to do it in your country. Because in our country it works, and we feel it might work in your country. And the feedback was, nah, it's not going to work. I'm not going to name which country said that in particular. But the level of trust in social innovation is also quite low, by the way, because the examples that we see are not that many. If I were to ask you and myself to put down on a list 10 European social innovators, I think we would not get to 10. Probably 1 or 2 might, but we will not get. So if we don't know them, how could the rest of the people trust something to be successful if there's no success stories? If Mr. Tesla is the only example that we have around us. Now, operations are critical when it comes to scaling or rescaling or do reverse scaling, because what happens in Romania doesn't happen in Bulgaria. Things are so different when you do, and you need to have this, let's call it cultural management or local culture. Because the culture of entrepreneurship, the culture of innovation, the culture of purpose and purpose-driven businesses in countries that are literally glued together by geography and history is very different. So when you go and scale something that was designed and delivered in Lithuania, and you take it to Portugal, it's very expensive. Very, very expensive. And it takes a lot of time. Who funds that? And of course, who funds failure? When I say reverse scaling, and this is a model that we need to look more and more towards, is something similar that we do as well here. You know, we select some social innovations from Europe and across the world, and we say we want to bring that innovation to Europe, to country X. But do we fund feasibility studies? And I think not, because I have seen many of these call for proposals, transnational or not, and sometimes I feel that if the ones that create the structure would have deeper and more meaningful and really honest conversations with those that would implement social innovation in the end, things could go better. But is what I do social innovation? I have read the definitions, and most of the things that most NGOs do are social innovation by the definitions that we have. But do I need to call it that? Probably not. This is another question that arises many times when I meet with my peers, and we talk to ourselves and say, nobody asks, are you doing social innovation? But we're asking, what is your impact? How is your funding model? How are the people in your team? Do you find people, by the way? Etc. So these are the questions that we ask ourselves many times. For the non-Romanians, so the Romanians, can you not say anything, but the others, do you know that building? Do you know what that building is? Can I have a yes? What is it? It's a house, yes. It's a house for the people. It is the largest civil building in the world. It is the second largest building in the world after the Pentagon, but the largest civil building in the world is in Bucharest. As many of you might know, this is the House of the People, or the Palace of the Parliament, where other institutions also have their offices. It's really big, and parts of it are empty. But that's not why I'm talking about it. This building and everything around it was built by demolishing and destroying entire neighborhoods in the 80s. What we in Eastern Europe can, I wouldn't say teach, but you can share to our Western European colleagues is that when it's really tough, this is when you find solutions. And especially when it comes to social innovation and the hard and complicated challenges we have had in the past 35 years in Eastern Europe, the transition period, the failures of democracy, which we also see in Western Europe quite a lot. I think we have something that many of our peers in Western Europe do not, which is resilience taught by reality, not by books. Of course, there's hardships in Portugal and the Netherlands and Italy. But comparing the worlds that we come from, I think there's a lot that we can all learn from each other, but also the other way around. I have a friend who, his name is Alex Gavan, and he tries to save the oldest and the rarest fish in the world. This is a fish called asprete. You can find it in Romania. There's about 50 of them left. They lived with the dinosaurs. It looks like a mini dinosaur, by the way. To do that, he needs to work with everyone. Business community, NGOs, experts, public system, etc. And to complete what Lina said, I think this is the way forward, and it is the only way forward, because functional ecosystems need to work together. So we need to work more, not better. I think we work good, but we need to work more and deeper with each other. And the small elephant in the room, there's another one that I briefly mentioned before, which was failure management and failure funding, is how can we make social innovation matter more for more stakeholders? Because social innovation is in itself a bubble within the larger European institutions. How can we show, and what do we need to put on the table to show everyone that social innovation is the solution? And once we understand and fund the ability of social innovators to prove not just impact, but the money they make or save to national budgets, this is when we can actually move forward with this. On that note, I wish you an amazing 2 days ahead. I hope those of us that leave tomorrow by plane will have an airport to leave from, functional one. But at the same time, I think it's within the rights of the workers to do a strike. And it is within the rights of all of us to say when something is wrong and to try to find solutions. Thank you, and thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Ciprian, for your most interesting presentation on the social innovation puzzle. And I'm sure we will hear some echoes and reflections on what you told us here later today in the panel discussion or in the workshops. Now, earlier this year, an invitation was extended to nominate social innovations from the Social Innovation Match database. And the goal was here to encourage practitioners to showcase their innovative practices, social innovators, and also to infuse real-world perspectives into this forum's agenda. So this resulted in 69 project submissions from 19 countries. And during these two-day forum, you will have the opportunity to hear the stories of 5 promising practices. The first 2 social innovation practitioners were foreseen to come to the stage right now. Unfortunately, one of them is ill, but we will solve that problem. Let me just explain in general what we're going to do. We will start with a short movie from each initiative, followed by a brief presentation from each practitioner, and after the first one, the other presenter will have the opportunity to ask a question. I might have a question or two as well. You might have questions as well. And we hope to have time for some questions of the audience after both presentations. Each presenter will have 10 minutes in total, including time for questions. You can send in questions via Slido, but I will also be taking questions from the room. First, questions from the room. If there are no questions from the room, we will look at Slido. But the first 2 practitioners, as I said, we'll do it a little bit differently because, unfortunately, one of them is ill. The first presentation we want to introduce to you this morning is the Craftsmen design from Poland. The Craftsmen Design Initiative is a project designed by Sense Consulting that sets new standards for practical classes for future carpenters. This initiative aims to modernize vocational training by integrating innovative teaching methods and hands-on experience. And the testimony will be brought to you by Marcin Bielicki. The second practice will be showcased right after, only through a video. And that is called Salary Instead of Pocket Money. And this project aims to provide people with intellectual disabilities or multiple challenges access to inclusive labor markets. And the project here is from Austria. But first up is Marcin Bielicki. Let's see a small movie first about the Craftsmen design.
Projektowanie rzemieślników jest innowacją społeczną skalowaną w ramach projektu Po pojutrze zawodowo. Jej odbiorcami są uczniowie szkół branżowych i technicznych kształcący się w zawodzie stolarza oraz studenci wzornictwa lub projektowania. Jej celem jest wyposażanie odbiorców z tychże grup w kompetencje dające im pełną świadomość procesu projektowego. Od rozpoznania potrzeb klienta, przez rozwój produktu, jego produkcję, skończywszy na oddaniu go klientowi.
Uczniowie mogli tak naprawdę przeprowadzić cały proces, czyli nie dostawali oni gotowego projektu i musieli coś wykonać. Jednak oni musieli ten projekt sami zaprojektować, porozmawiać z tym klientem, dowiedzieć się, jakie są oczekiwania, na co muszą zwrócić uwagę. Współpracowali z profesjonalistami związanymi z projektowaniem, a następnie tutaj na naszych warsztatach szkolnych pod nadzorem nauczyciela prowadzącego mogli ten mebel wykonać.
Uczniowie na pewno zyskali możliwość projektowania, w szczególności tego projektowania w komputerze.
Cała współpraca z doświadczonymi projektantami na pewno pokazała nam bardzo dobrze ten świat. Pokazali nam programy, w których się to wszystko projektuje, jak wygląda też rozmowa z projektantem i dochodzenie do wniosków przy projekcie, co da się zrobić, czego nie da się zrobić.
No, dla mnie, jako studentki, która jeszcze wcześniej nie miała za bardzo styczności z wykonawcami takimi per se, najtrudniejsze było właśnie spotkanie się tych 2 grup. Do czasu, aż nie mieliśmy tam zajęć z komunikacji. Uczyliśmy się takich podstawowych rzeczy jak zadawanie pytań i jakie są rodzaje tych pytań.
W tym projekcie na pewno nowe dla mnie było podejście do wszystkiego od początku, nie tylko z części wykonawczej, tylko rzeczywiście od kontaktu z klientem do zaprojektowania wszystkiego.
Po tym, jak miałam trochę kontaktu właśnie i z przyszłymi stolarzami, to wiem, że oni bardzo chcą właśnie konkretnych informacji, czyli faktycznie uwzględnienie maszyn, którymi stolarze się posługują na warsztatach, no zmienia bardzo dużo, bo i ci stolarze na poważnie faktycznie biorą projektanta i nie muszą się nadmiernie głowić nad tym, w jaki sposób to wykonać.
No, współpraca z projektantami rozwinęła też naszą kreatywność, no bo tworząc ten projekt musieliśmy szukać różne rozwiązania.
Absolwent programu projektowanie rzemieślników wychodzi zarówno z wyższą kompetencją w zakresie komunikacji, jak i z wyższymi umiejętnościami stosowania w procesie projektowym narzędzi teleinformatycznych.
Łączenie studentów czy absolwentów szkół projektowych z właśnie uczniami szkół branżowych też nas zbliża pokoleniowo do tego, żebyśmy mogli do czegoś naprawdę fajnego dojść w przyszłości.
Z mojej perspektywy innowacja miała naprawdę fajny, taki wielowymiarowy charakter. Cieszę się, że mogliśmy zaangażować zarówno studentów, uczniów, praktyków, jak i naukowców, bo tak naprawdę zderzenie tych różnych perspektyw na różnym poziomie doświadczenia i różnym poziomie wykształcenia zaowocowało powstaniem narzędzi, które mają wartość, które zmieniają sposób nauczania.
Good morning. Oh, so quiet. Thank you. Before I'll start, I have several questions to you. Let's play a game. Have I ever? It's quite simple. I just want you to raise your hand if you have ever felt at any stage of your education that you are learning something which you will never use in the future. Okay, second question. If you have ever felt during your education that it's pointless, it's meaningless, and you shouldn't be there. Okay. Third question, there are two more. Third question, if you have ever later in your professional life felt, this is totally different that I was taught in the school. The real world is different than the one which was presented to me during my studies, my high school, and so on. Okay. And the last one, have you ever felt that, I really wish someone previously presented me this or that during my studies, my high school, whatever? Perfect. So we are here from most European countries, and you just identified the challenges and the problems in education across the whole Europe. And we have exactly the same challenge in Poland. And we identified the challenge related to our education that 3 actors of our world are actually living in separate worlds. And there's a wall, there's a brick between them, which we want to crush through our social innovation. So we identified that we have students, design students, which at their studies, they have to design something, they have to pass their diploma, they have to do some projects. So basically, they are designing things which later go to the shelf, and nobody do anything with that. Then we have also carpentry students, and their task at their schools is, for example, to learn their discipline knowledge. So, for example, how to make a leg of a chair. And what they do, they are perfect in making a leg of a chair or a table. But they don't actually think how later they will collaborate with the clients, how they will collaborate with designers. So also we have the real world, which requires us, both students from universities, art universities, design programs, and carpentry students. They have to understand the real needs of their future collaborators and their clients. So our goal through our innovation was to destroy those barriers. And how we did it. You had a chance to see brief introduction, video introduction about our innovation. Basically, we gathered interdisciplinary team, consists of scientists, people from design, people related to education, and potential clients. And together we were thinking how to represent the real-life experience in the whole educational system on two different levels. First, for carpentry students and for design students. It was a challenging task, and at the end, we thought that we'll succeed if we'll be able to develop not only professional discipline skills, but what is missing the most is social skills. Because if we talk about so-called famous right now T-shaped skills, when you have that part related to very deep disciplinary skills, I would say in Poland we have it on a very good level. But that second part of T-letter, where we need collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and in that part we are missing something in our education. So we are thinking how we can supplement our students with those skills. And we created a program when they are forced to work together on real-life problems to finally deliver the real-life product to their customers. And we were surprised. We were surprised because, as you had chance to listen, they not only had chance to actually develop their skills, but later, because we did interviews with them, what was the most surprising for us was the change in their mindset. Because they said they see the world differently right now, and they see education differently. Because right now they see that there is a value in their education because they do something which they can easily transfer to real life. They can actually even start doing some, let's say, small projects while they are still studying or they are still in their schools because they know how to talk to client, they know how to create products. So our lessons learned from the whole experience is education, from our perspective, should be a tool to help people understand how the world in which we live works, make them, well, kind of force them, motivate them to be able to change this world in the way they want. So we really want to have citizens, we want to have professionals which are not only waiting for the future, but they are willing to change the future. And we want to deliver it the way so education should represent as close as it possible the real life. And we did it in just our one incubator. So far we had 5 schools, 5 universities, 5 university teachers, 7 teachers from the schools, and 63 students. Right now we are in the stage where we already know something about their experiences a year after program, but later we want to have evaluation after a few years to see how they value their experience and new skills in their professional life when they already will have some experience. And I wanted to make my presentation short because I'm waiting for your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcin, for your explanation. Unfortunately, Silke Ehrenbrandner from Austria is not here. We will show a video about her project right away, but she did send in a question for you. And her question is, what challenges did you face in recruiting schools for the program, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Okay. So yeah, probably you are all aware that if we are trying to change the system, there are a lot of barriers, especially in the education. Education, at least in Poland, is a very traditional field. And we've heard many times, this is something we were doing for past 20, 30, 40 years, and it worked. So why should we change anything? So first, which was quite important for us, it was to provide names, people from across disciplines, and also implement in our project team people from universities and from schools. So they had that feeling that everything which we are creating, we know how the whole system works. So both when we are entering the university, we knew their procedures, we knew what regulations they have. If we are entering the school, we also knew what procedures they have, what curriculum they have, and it was very important for us to show them that this is not additional work for you. It is just a better way for you to do the job you have to do anyway. And we also presented them science-based results, why this way they can actually help their students, both at the university and at school, to develop the skills they need.
So does it mean that you have data or statistics to prove the impact of this kind of initiative for the students' future careers?
Yeah, actually, this is a very important point which was mentioned by a previous speaker here. We need success stories and we need data to convince people to use our innovations. Thankfully, problem-based learning, team-based learning, T-shaped skills, 21st century skills, even if not in Poland and not in that particular setting, we have plenty of data that it's beneficial.
Yes, Ciprian highlighted earlier that initiative is not transposable to any other country, or not right away. It's not that easy. Do you think that this approach can also be applied in other sectors of EU or EU countries, in other fields maybe?
I would say that our program should be more like an inspiration. Of course, we have similar but different regulations, different curriculums, and so on in different countries. But from my perspective, it can be just an inspiration for you that you can make education more practical for your students and try to observe how actually the world works right now, and that world will change rapidly. It does right now. Our task is to make education ready for those changes. And I would say the most important is try to think how your education right now prepare your students to live in the world right now and 5 years from now, and if you can make anything better to represent that real world in your educational system.
Thank you. Any question from the room? Yes, you do? Okay, do we have a microphone here for Ciprian? Ciprian has a question, and otherwise we will look at Slido. There might be more questions there.
Thank you.
It works. I think it works.
It works, yeah. There's a lot of questions here as well. There's really great questions, but I put it here as well. I was curious about your impact measurement tools, no pun intended, but how do you measure it when?
Yeah, actually, the thing is, right now we are just after the program. So, and as you mentioned, also just a quick remark, I'm not only an innovation manager in the program, but I'm also a researcher at Poznań University of Economics, and my field is innovation, basically innovation and 21st century competences, mostly pre-incubators and incubators. So the case you were mentioning, the problem in that kind of innovations is that usually the results are very long-term results. So for example, if you develop the proper mindset, the skills related to collaboration or creative thinking, you can see results maybe not even right now, but quite often when we compare incubation programs or pre-incubation programs. After 10 years, a person said, okay, I had that kind of project at my school and I had my career in some corporation, but I still had in back of my head that I can create something by my own. I can start my own business because I know how to talk to clients and so on. So right now, basically, we are just after in-depth interviews because it is just after the program. So we ask our participants about their perception of how their life has changed after the program. But later we want to, well, this is also a discussion for us. Probably we can also discuss it a bit later. Maybe you have some clues how we can, in a few years from now, how we can track their for example, comparing to their peers who not participated in the program, how their careers have evolved.
Okay, maybe two of you can have a chat later.
Hopefully.
Shall we have a look at maybe some other questions from Slido? Can we make them appear on the screen? Or are they just in your phone? Okay. Are the carpenter students incentivized to learn design as well, to have a more creative approach to their careers?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was not per se a goal of the program, but we were thinking about it. And also, when they had a chance to talk and work with designers, they learned about parts of the process. And we know from the interviews that for them it was interesting. It was, they also mentioned in the video that that creative part, that it's not only the work that you have to do that leg of a chair, for example, but you have to think about some problems, how to solve this or that thing for the client, and how the furniture can be functional. It was also motivational for some of those students, of course not for all of them, but they said that the world before the innovation and after innovation was slightly different, because they realized they can actually do things which they thought that they are like only for designers. They can do part of that.
Okay, let me pick up one more question,
Okay.
maybe the third one. It's a more critical question. Isn't this a usual practice to have a practical part in the professional vocational education? So why is this really social innovation? What makes it specifically social innovation, according to you?
Of course it is obligatory, and it's a big part of professional education. But what they do is, for example, they have to learn professional skills. So I'm not an expert in terms of carpentry, but you have some specific requirements if you want to create a table. And the exercise for students is to follow the procedure and create a table. So basically this is what they do. So far, they didn't collaborate at educational level in their school with designers or final clients. So that was that additional part. Plus, also for students, they actually don't collaborate with students, carpentry students, before they actually go to business and go to the market. So we wanted to create that collaboration and make sure they will learn about each other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Marcin, I am afraid this is what we have time for because we're running behind schedule. But thank you very much. But to close this chapter, I would like to propose that we have a look at the video also about this other innovative project, Salary Instead of Pocket Money, that was sent in by the Austrian team, the Austrian innovators.
Welcome to Project 27, Work Performance Participation, an innovative project by Lebenshilfe Kärnten in cooperation with the ESF Plus and the province of Carinthia. The 2-year pilot project focuses on jobs for people with disabilities. With initial assistance, 20 project participants are given the opportunity to switch from a skills-oriented workshop to the primary labour market.
Das erste Mal haben wir das fast 30 Jahre gewohnt, schon mal anders arbeiten. Ich sage jetzt hast du gesagt, jetzt passt. Lustiger ist es auch, meistens freuen wir die Arbeit.
This means that there is a real salary for work instead of pocket money, together with their own social insurance and, of course, an employment contract.
Ich habe so viele Sachen eingekauft, das was ich brauche und das, was ich auf die Seiten tue.
This opens up new life opportunities and new goals, provides increased self-confidence, and changes the living environments of people with disabilities.
Man ist selbstständiger geworden, man ist freier geworden, da braucht man keine Angst haben und da braucht man nicht verzweifelt sein.
The radius in which they move around every day increases and thus creates opportunities to meet more people.
Für uns als Unternehmen ist es ganz wichtig, einfach das Betriebsklima ein bisschen inklusiver zu machen.
Sie sind echt grundehrlich, sie sind hilfsbereit, sie sind total nett und das gehört viel mehr gefördert und unterstützt.
An inspiring social innovation project from Austria. More presentations are coming up later during this forum, and please don't forget that you can find much more inspiring case studies in the Social Innovation Match database and also here at the Social Innovation Market organized during today's lunch break. Time for a coffee break, maybe? Stretch your legs for a moment, have a coffee, have a chat with your colleagues about what has already been said, and we'll meet again at, let's say, 11:10, 11:15 at the latest to start with part 2. Thank you. could you please take your seats for the second part? We'd like to start again. Thank you very much. So please find your seats. Okay, I think we can start again because we have a very interesting panel discussion coming up right now, and this panel will explore solutions for bringing social innovation projects to life. I would like to introduce to you the panel members, and if it's okay with the panel members, I would like to take this chair here so I can see everyone and whoever wants to say anything. I'd like to introduce to you Ruud Passerman, Director for Funds, Programming and Implementation of DG Employment, European Commission. Please take the floor and take a seat. We all know Ciprian Stănescu by now, President of Social Innovation Solutions. Amal Chevreau, Acting Head of the Social Economy and Innovation Unit at the OECD. Armel Ledon is lead thematic expert of the COP on social innovation. And finally, Hanna Katsiela is head of unit of social innovation at the Ministry of Development Funds and Regional Policy in Poland. Welcome, all of you. We have, let's say, 3/4 of an hour or an hour of discussions among the panel members, and after that, we would like you to participate in the panel as well through Slido or just by asking questions in the room at the end of this debate. Let me maybe explain that we're going to discuss 3 topics in the panel. Part 1 will be about creating a culture of social innovation in EU administrations. In part 2 of the discussions, we will look at practical tips from innovators to boost social innovation practices in EU administrations. And part 3 will explore the role of Social Innovation Forum and the COPs in enhancing social innovation in administrations. And to give you some context about the first part maybe, DSF Plus supports, of course, the implementation of social innovation projects across the European Union, but some administrations, national and local authorities, still struggle in concretely using these possibilities. We would like to explore how stakeholders involved in ESF Plus implementation tackle this social innovation I mentioned, and would like to turn to you, Ruud Passerman, if I may, for a first question. What does the Commission actually expect from promoting social innovation, and how does DG Employment, together of course with ESFA, concretely use ESF Plus for this purpose?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. And I'm very happy to be here and to see so many people interested in social innovation. So our goal is basically to facilitate. I mean, we believe in social innovation, and we believe also that there is a big potential of social innovation in different member states, and therefore also big potential to transfer good practices between member states. And the idea is, of course, we identify a social innovation, we try to see if it can be transferred or upscaled, and finally, eventually, it could be mainstreamed in the European Social Fund. Although it doesn't have to be mainstreamed in the European Social Fund, you could also mainstream it in your national policies. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but we try to be facilitator for the whole chain, the experimentation, the scaling up and transfer, and then the mainstreaming. Within the ESF, we have about 1.8 billion, which have already been programmed for social innovation by the member states. But of course, there can be other, I mean, if we are successful in our goal to transfer and to learn, then this could be even more in the future. Now, and of course, we have also, so this is the main goal of this initiative, which is managed by the Lithuanian managing ESFA, the implementing body, which I have to thank for all the hard work that they do. And so they manage the calls that we do, call for proposals, and also the communities of practices. The communities of practices are very important for really the sharing, discussing, having ideas, and indeed having this transfer also from a practical point of view of how they can work together. And I know many of colleagues dealing with the communities of practices are here today. And then, of course, with the calls are more, open. They're actually for the practitioners, which are doing projects on the ground. And the goal is to see, indeed, how they can be, if there is a potential for transferring and upscaling. We do calls on various subjects. I'm sure you know, the first one was the ALMA call, which was about mobility of very disadvantaged groups and how this can give them a sort of a new perspective and in life, let's say. And I'm actually very looking forward to the evaluation of this call, which will be next year. Normally should be finished by then. But then, for the moment, we also have calls on, for example, the effects of how to deal with the effects of the crisis in Ukraine, in Europe, in Europe, but, massive migration, the issues with energy and so forth. And we also had call about skills developments for needs. And now we just yesterday closed the call on the experience of the net zero unemployment areas. This was a very successful call. We had more than 70 applications, and probably there will be, I don't know, between 10 and 20 that will be supported. So it's a very competitive call, but it shows that we are being successful, we're being known, we're getting increased traction, and people think that this is good and it can work. So I'm very pleased about that. And finally, perhaps I should also mention the social innovation match, which is the possibility to collect all social innovation. It's a database, basically, collects social innovation from all member states and also can help about creating connections between different parts. So, for next year, perhaps I should mention the calls that we will have next year. There will be one on assisting people with disabilities and one on supporting the implementation of the child guarantee and tackling child poverty. So this is the program for the moment. I'm very excited to hear my distinguished panels, and I'll come back later on.
Okay. Let me turn to Hanna then, maybe as head of unit of social innovation from the Ministry of Development in Poland. What is to you the added value of the introduction of social innovation as a dimension of the ESF Plus programming?
Good morning, everybody. I think that in theory, we all know what are the benefits of social innovation. Yes, they give us more effective solutions, the solutions that are better suited to the social needs, and in a broader sense, they could also influence how innovative you are as a society and how open you are to the change. But coming back a little bit more into the ESF world, I would say that social innovation projects, they give us a huge platform to test new solutions at very small scale. And they let us to think in an unconventional, novel way. And on one side, it's a kind of privilege. And on the other side, it's also some kind of necessity. Because when you opt to have social innovation projects within your OP, you have to be innovative. You have to go outside, you have to think outside the box and go beyond the established patterns. And as innovation is always about the people, but also with the people, I think it's also important that it's very motivating for the staff, for the institutions, that they could do the things in different ways. Because within social innovation projects, you can fail, you can take a risk. And within the OP, you also gain a very important tool that you can work on new solutions. And when it is effective, you can go further, you can scale it within innovation, within mainstream priorities in the OP. It's quite challenging. We did it several times. To give you an example, in 2015, we have quite a big problem with access to psychiatric psychiatric support to children and youth, and it really had huge impact on their education. And as an initiative of a small group of parents, experts in the field, and small organizations, we launched a call with a very limited budget. We say that we'll give you 17,000 euro per one model, and you will be in charge of showing us how to change the system. And after that small call, we implemented this new way of support in 11 centers in the whole Poland. These were the community-based centers, because previously the whole support was rather based on hospital treatment. And after 4 years, the Ministry of Health took the experience we had, the solutions we tested, and started to change the system and to introduce the reform in this area. And we are still supporting this reform. We do not finance it, but we support everything which is around within the mainstream ESF projects. We train the staff, we work on diagnostic programs, and so on.
So the main thing for you is that the ESF Plus programming provides you with a safe environment where you have permission to fall, where it's not in other projects, it's not always the case. Armel, how do you look at this from the COP on Innovation's point of view?
Good morning, the COP members, because many of you are actually the audience and the participants. To me, the main change and the main value of making it compulsory for everybody was that before we had 6 member states, and it was on a voluntary basis, and Poland was amongst them, using ESF to fund social innovation, and now we have all of you. And that definitely makes a difference in terms of funding, for sure, but more than that and beyond money, which was recalled by Ruth, because there's a critical mass now also of projects and innovations everywhere across Europe, and also because you are 27 who can cooperate and exchange. Hence the need for this COP, where we discuss exchange, because we all agree about the fact that the contexts are very important in social innovation, very, very different. What happens in Poland is not what happens in France or Portugal or Sweden or Romania, due to what you know, regulation, policies, budgets, etc., culture of work. But exchanging is, however, very useful. I could just make a comparison with what we were talking when we said scaling and expanding or transferring or whatever the word we use. We know we can't copy-paste. We know that. It's for granted. So should we stop? No. And you can only manage to successfully adapt and adopt something if you exchange an awful lot between the initial innovation and the receiving context. And as it was said before by Ciprian in his opening speech, these parts and these steps which are crucial are very often not funded. And Anna is talking about starting at small scale. It's very interesting to see that it came from the end users, the example that you were giving. I think it's also something which we are learning together, because the situation is very different between member states. The fact that you all must use ESF to fund social innovation makes that exchange super useful, and you're not at the same stage of knowledge and experience and skills, because we're talking about that. And that's why we need to cooperate, but even those who started decades ago are still learning. And I take 3 examples of Poland or the Czech Republic or maybe also Austria. In some countries, you see that they discovered by starting very small pilots, you take less risk. You encourage everybody to start, and if it doesn't work, you can stop after the pilot, and you give time for people to prototype. And we had an example with a very nice social innovation in Flanders, Papillon, which fights against energy poverty, and it was transferred in the Czech Republic. And they thought it would be easy. The concept looked quite simple, which is not. Many things needed to be adapted, but what happened is that they started with 5 or 7 pilots, I think, in the country. So yes, I was really in line with what was said. It takes time, and it requires patience and a lot of exchange, and to go into the details of the process for social innovation.
Okay. It takes time. That's something you mentioned as well, Ciprian. Have you already benefited from publicly funded policies, and what's your experience with them?
Honestly?
Yes, please.
It's not amazing. I'm going to say 2 things that are 3 that might be a bit abrupt to some people in the room, and I apologize in advance. I am just trying to challenge more of us. Real social innovators should not receive free money. Because
what do you mean by free money?
I mean grants.
Okay.
Because if you see yourself as a social innovator, or in my view, a social innovator is someone that has designed a functional financial model that keeps that activity running or growing. Why not? So if we are...
that's not a second stage after the designing of the project itself?
I don't think
for
so.
which you do need money to start?
Of course you always need money, but what I'm saying is that if we're talking about social innovation, not about social entrepreneurship, then we're talking about a type of people that should be mature enough already, and that they should have a functional business model around whatever their intervention is. So to fund them more, or to give them what we would call operational cash, is on the long run not going to help them. Because if that cash goes away, and there's a question, the new innovation agenda of the EU doesn't mention social innovation, right? If the funds disappear for some reason, maybe the EU has a different perspective on the matter, and you don't have financially sustainable organizations that implement social innovation, or scaled, let's say, then we're in this is a huge problem. I think we need more independent or autonomous social innovators, not social innovators that are dependent on EU funding.
Okay.
What EU funding, and I'll rest with that, what EU funding can and should do, in my view, is to go, of course, at the basis of the sort of early stage social innovation, but also to go up when there's systems changing challenges and money that I have never seen so far. Again, I'll say this until I die. Money to fail. If we always put success KPIs, and if you don't have that success, you can't really get other types of funding, then you're not going to start. Because the nature of entrepreneurship...
It's an interesting point of view.
I told you I'm going to be...
Yeah. Do you know, or what are your thoughts on what Ciprian just said? And maybe to add on that, do you know about other public policies on social innovation with funding? Could you give us an external view from the OECD?
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. I'm listening with a lot of interest to what Ciprian has said, but from the work that we've been doing here at the OECD on social innovation, we know that, for instance, there are like some basic conditions for it to thrive, and some of them were not only spoken about this morning, but also shown through the examples, which are like patience and experimentation, the right to fail, and everything. From the policy side, there are a lot of countries now that are using social innovation as part of as part of an approach to different sectors, but also as a strategy linked to either tackling specific problems or as a strategy to support, and I don't want you to jump, social entrepreneurship as well, because a lot of social entrepreneurs also experiment with social innovation. So I didn't want to go into this now, but since you're asking the question, what we have seen is that, for instance, and I have a Korean colleague here in the room with me, in Korea, for instance, there is a lot of experimentation now with social innovation. And social innovation is given a lot of importance, but the starting point of all this, it was also the support given to social enterprises, cooperatives, so coming from the social economy sector. It's not the same everywhere, of course, and I agree with Armel, everything is very context-based when it comes to social innovation. The other thing is, for us at the OECD, what we found through at least looking into how countries build ecosystems for social innovation to thrive. We've also looked into social innovation application in certain contexts. We've looked into how social innovation can deliver, for instance, in rural areas where there are gaps to fill in terms of service, in terms of market, in terms of reaching people and letting them experiment also their own solutions. So I would say there are three things, and I hope that the panel will agree with me. Most countries that look into social innovation and legislate or adopt policies, they do three things. They look into the framework conditions, and when I say framework conditions, we've talked about this also in the first part of today, which is culture and behaviors, local traditions, that exist in different places within one country, laws and regulations. Regulation is very important. It could be an enabler, but it could be also something that could stop people from going into social innovation. Institutional frameworks like visions for how to include social innovation in policy, because social innovation could be a policy in itself, but it could also help policy to deliver certain objectives, like, for instance, social impact bonds is one of these things where innovation was involved. Having a customized strategy, so it has to be really, really tailor-made to the local context, and this is where, as was said, social innovation in Portugal is not social innovation in Mexico or Korea or other places. And policy implementation through demand side and supply side measures. Demand side being public procurement, for instance, regulations. Supply side could be the provision of soft and hard infrastructure. So all these things. And one bit that a lot of people don't like, and we get that it's very difficult, which is impact measurement. So for impact measurement, which is a challenge, because again, let's face it, social innovation, and we've heard this morning a great talk about how it could be a puzzle. But again, and we do agree with it also, we have a definition here at the OECD that aligns pretty much with what the European Commission has also as the definition for social innovation, which is anything to do with new ideas, and it could come in form of products, services, processes, different things. So for the impact measurement, and I'll finish with that, not to say that we've got it all figured out, but we've worked also with the European Commission on seeing both sides. From the policy maker side, and we have a whole book on that, and also recently from the organizations themselves. And we know that it's a journey, it takes time, it takes money, it takes a lot of effort, it takes training, it takes also willingness to measure something that's sometimes very, very hard to measure.
Okay. I can see that a lot of questions are coming in already. I promise to come back to those later in a while. Please give likes to the questions that you think are important so we can pick them up as the first questions later during this panel conversation. I hope you can give likes to the questions. Yeah? Okay. First, I would like to return to Hannah and returning to ESF Plus as well. May I ask you, what has changed in the way your administration works and programs social projects in types of calls, working methodologies, involvement of new types of actors, partners, and so forth? You wanted to talk about that and show us an example also.
I think that after equal and post-equal programming period, you wanted to shift a perception of social innovative projects within ESF that were seen as very difficult, challenging ones that could be done only by big organizations with huge experience in the area and within ESF. We wanted to see more individuals, small organizations involved. And 10 years ago, we started as a pilot call to support incubators. These are the organizations that look for innovators among individuals and small organizations. They try to take them out of the Polish garages, support them on their working on new solutions to different problems, all problems that could be covered, but could be covered by ESF, and then disseminate what have proven to be effective. Mm-hmm. We wanted also to do it with less money. So we really, within incubators work, we really focused on prototypes and testing on a small scale. To give you the example, one was also presented today by Marcin, because the incubators, they work and they look for really small solutions. These are not the policy innovations. These are the small prototypes of the services that could be used by different users. And Marcin has presented the Craftsmen design, and it also started as a small prototype that was invented by a student who saw the problem of lacking the cooperation between vocational training, universities, and the clients. And among this, the small prototypes, we have also some IT tools, but I brought with me something which is much simpler to show you. These are the 3D fairy tale characters that could be printed by every library, school, parent. They were designed to help blind children to explore better the fairy tale world. I took with me the most international ones, so the Puss in Boots and the Little Red Riding Hood. We have the whole library of it within the innovation, but my suitcase was too small to take it. And they were the models were done in a way that the features that are very important to touch are highlighted. Whereas other features which are not very important are omitted. So in the Little Red Riding Hood, the basket is very visible, very easy to touch and be distinguished, and the hood. And in case of the Puss in Boots, the boots are quite simple to touch and the head. And during this last 10 years, we have worked out more than 1,000 small prototypes of different services, products.
Maybe you can show them to the room one more time.
Something like this.
Beautiful. Okay.
And 40% of them were worked out by individual people and groups of individual people. And this is also the innovation that was made by psychologists and by a specialist in free modeling that was also a parent of blind children.
Okay. Armel, what have been the main challenges you faced in introducing, social innovation in terms of new working methodologies, training of staff, partnership steering? Can you elaborate a little bit on that for us?
From an outsider, because I'm giving a testimonial from what I observed in the COP activities with the different participants who are managing authorities, implementing bodies, etc. Hence, I would say that some had public policies supporting social innovation and some kind of institutions, even sometimes some funding at national level. Other countries, absolutely nothing. So the challenges are very different depending on who you are and which country you are. So that's for sure. What I see now after 2 years is that we looked at the programs at the beginning, and some were very detailed already, explaining very precisely what they were going to do. For others, it was broader, on purpose or not, sometimes because they didn't know what they would do with this money they had to spend on social innovation. And in other cases, because they wanted to have some flexibility for the 7 years to come, which is quite smart also. But there were different approaches. And now we are jumping into the calls, and that's really where it's becoming very interesting, because we see that the challenges are a bit the same. And I was looking at the questions, and I was smiling, because we spend quite a lot of time on exchanging on what are the social innovation characteristics. If you launch a call, you know about ESF, all of you, but what is a call for social innovation projects and initiative? What should be the differences? Who is going to assess it is innovative? So we went really into the details, using the experience and the knowledge of some of the partners, saying, I know about innovation in general, but I would be totally illegitimate to say if it is innovative or not in the field of immigration, because I'm not an expert, or in the field of skills, because I'm not an expert. Hence, the selection committees need to have experts from the field in itself, plus people able to talk about innovation and social innovation. We were talking recently about social impact assessment, or I should say evaluation of social innovation, to be more simple. Because these big things, and there are many tools and methods, we started by kind of induction, because here, most of us, we will be users. We will subcontract people who are going to evaluate our projects and our programs. To be able to select the good ones, we need to understand what are the good methods, the tools, what we want to do, etc. So now we're going to dig a bit more into this, and also into very specific fields, because the indicators or KPIs are not the same when you talk about social inclusion, homelessness, or skills for needs, or it's super different. And I would just like to finish, because I think we need to address that now. Really.
Please do.
Because really, it's true that social innovation is not only oriented by the market. And we were talking about funding, and if I may, Ciprian, I disagree a bit about that. Really. Because, yes, for social entrepreneurs who have a business model, yes. But if you take the example that Anna was giving, and we know many, In fact, we're talking about public policies and public services, and they can't be funded by the market. I mean, if you want to support a project, innovative or not, who is providing education or social services to older people, migrants, I mean, the vulnerable populations that ESF is generally serving, hence you need public money, for sure. So here, to try to answer this, we're talking about, someone put it very well actually. To me, social innovation can be led and initiated by civil society, citizens, local communities, and we have many examples, and you take the LEADER program, it's very clear. The private sector, yes, and the public sector. And probably, now I will come back to that later because I spoke enough.
Okay, fine.
Voilà.
Ciprian, I'm returned to you because if I'm not mistaken, well, we heard what you've said about funding, but you do agree that there's the need to give incentives to social innovators to, for instance, collaborate with other stakeholders. That's a good idea, isn't it?
So, first of all, I'm very happy that I stirred up the conversation. There's like, you need to talk to yourselves a lot. It's amazing. I really like it. Like, these are some of the best questions I've ever seen in an event. And I've been doing events for 20 years, 15, 20 years. I do, so, first, second, someone wrote, social innovation should not have a business model. And I agree and disagree at the same time. It's not even who makes it. So perhaps it's the wording that is difficult, right? Instead of saying a business model, let's call it a sustainable financial model. If we're talking about public innovation, let's call it, public social innovation, it still needs a business model, but we can call it a financially sustainable model. It needs to have resources. It needs to have processes that are related to how you spend money, how you make money or take it from somewhere, etc. So I'm very happy that people disagree with each other because this is good. Sometimes I feel that we agree too much with each other, and that doesn't really result into progress. And this leads me to the question, which is about collaboration and cooperation, right? And this is another, it's not black and white, for me at least. It's quite,
what is not black and white?
If you cooperate with everyone, this is the way. This is the way. This is very black or white, doesn't matter, right? It's very clear.
You think it should not be mandatory, for instance?
I think it should be context-based. Because let's pick an example in a country, I will not name it, in the EU, where someone from the private sector, which can be civil or business, has an idea that is a systems-changing idea. And we had a question before that revolutionizes or changes the way public policy is made. In theory, to get, including EU money, if we go on the mandatory scale and say, you need to work with the government or authorities, business, civic, etc., so to have everyone on board. In that specific case, you don't want to work with the mayor or the public authority because you're doing something that they're not able to because probably they don't want to. When you talk about social innovations related to human rights, when you talk about education to some extent, and other topics that are very sensitive or very political, then I think it's good that they're not very engaged with the public authorities because that would not help them, on the contrary. In theory, it sounds good. But in practice, when you go down there, it's very context related. We have strategic partners, the Romanian government, ministries from Bulgaria all the way to Ukraine, even now. We work with the business community, most of it, because what we do needs everyone. But sometimes there's instances in which this doesn't really work. You should strive for it, but you should not. I don't think it should be mandatory.
Okay, interesting. I'd like to hear Amal's thoughts on that, but first, Ruth, you had a comment.
I can also speak after Amal, no problem. No, I think there is an issue. I agree that I've never seen so many questions in this kind of event. That's a very good guess. So to come back to the issue of private, it's not really the issue of private. Let's say I work in the public sector, and therefore for me, when I think about social innovation, I think personally about innovation that can change the processes of the public sector to make them more efficient or more effective. And that's the way I see it. So I admit it's partial, my way. We must also recognize that the public sector is very static, conservative, risk-averse, and therefore having a model which is like the social innovation is a way to push, at least to put to the forefront that possible innovations. So first you need a model that allows innovations to emerge in such a risk-averse environment. And secondly, then you also need, let's say, solid evaluation or impact measurement that allows you to prove that it was a good thing and therefore possibly to mainstreaming. I mean, for me, the goal is the mainstreaming. It is not having lots of projects all over the place. It's clear that there are lots of projects for a few that end up to be mainstreamed. It's clear, but that's the final goal.
Okay, Amal.
Just 3 things. And I agree. I've never seen so many questions while the panel was taken. We have them on the spot.
I promise.
We have them on the spot. So some of the questions were about definitions and what is social entrepreneurship versus social enterprises versus. I mean, I'm just saying that we have done a lot of work, and I think this work now is accessible so people can, know the differences. I just wanted to mention 3 things. First of all, at least within the OECD zone, we wanted to make our constituency and beyond that social innovation is something very important. And we adopted what we call in the jargon a recommendation. And one of the pillars of this recommendation is social innovation. Mm-hmm. And we say exactly what has been said so far, which is right to experiment and fail, and so on and so forth. So that's the first thing. Second, I think we, in our line of work within the OECD, at least in the department where I am, we try to embed also an element of social innovation in many ways, either through involving stakeholders from different points of view, even those who would come and say, why OECD is working on this in the first place. So we're trying to implement it, just like Ruth said, also in our daily work. Last but not least, and this is a shout out for me to this community of practice, because I've never met the community of practice of social innovation in Europe. I would love to interact a little bit more to learn and everything. And why? Because we have the opportunity now to work on the impact of ESF on the development of social innovation through a project that we have launched together with colleagues who are here in the room. And we are trying to look into, through work on 96 national evaluations of many projects that cover 24 countries across different sectors. We have 30 sectors, and we've started meeting the stakeholders. We were last week with my colleague here in Denmark, and we met the stakeholders and the managing authority on a specific project on education and vocational training. We have gone through some of these evaluations, and I'm going to go through maybe a little, at, I would say, the micro level of what we've seen as major roadblocks that people have signaled to us in terms of how their social innovation projects have been going on. So, for instance, in some projects we have come across of the idea of lack of trust and experience with working with different stakeholders. That's something that could lead to failure. For instance, of a project where the end goal also is to promote social innovation. Minimum or minimal awareness of what social innovation is. So that's why this kind of exercise and these kinds of forums and community of practices and everything are very important. Not to discuss the concept, but to, and I like the idea of social implementers, how it is implemented, because I think this is an area where learning by doing is very, very important. Another element is, of course, did the project target the right people and the right place? So sometimes the intended, for instance, we saw that in Denmark, where a project was intended to reduce the number of dropouts in school, but then it didn't end up really targeting that group. So how do we really focus the efforts on the actual target groups? And of course, last but not least, something that may be another elephant in the room, but was addressed in many ways, administration, dealing with the processes when you have you want to have a long-term vision through projects, but then you have the requirements of being funded by, for instance, the ESF. That's something also to be taken into account. So all in all, this is something where I think and we will try, even in this work, to bring not only experiments and experiences. I'm really happy to meet all these great people I will learn from the EU, but also from OECD. So because a lot of things are happening outside EU that could be useful also for EU to look at.
Okay, thank you, Amal. Since we do have a lot of questions, maybe it's a good idea to turn to the questions a little bit earlier than planned. And I was wondering, could we see the most popular questions first so we can pick them up first? I don't know if that is the case now, but we'll just start with the first question we're seeing here. We need to differentiate between social innovations. Oh, wow. We have another order here. Is that it?
When you say order and there's neoliberalism there, sounds very weird. This is the new world order?
Is that the most popular question I'm seeing here? The first one there? How can we convince risk-averse government officials with limited political mandates to support untested and complex social innovation schemes? That's indeed the most popular question. Thank you very much, Ruth. Yeah. Armel?
I can give it a try. Maybe as a start, you will have little chances to convince anyone with something which is not tested.
Yeah.
For sure. And you would not. In any case, someone comes to you and says, I've got something that works super well, whatever it is, a new Hoover for your room or whatever, you won't believe it just because he's saying it. So don't go into that. Evidence and evaluation. But it's true that there's a problem into convincing those who are going to fund you and those who could actually turn your small-scale innovation into something which benefits more people and more organization, which is actually the objective we are all pursuing. And we were discussing with some of you here from the ground, and I was saying that it's something that needs to be shared and discussed. Those who succeeded to convince policymakers to do a good advocacy, don't neglect, don't underestimate this part to be connected to the right people. Maybe not the people who are going to be elected by the people from the administration, the public servants and public officers who are quite stable. But we were talking about a culture of innovation, and it's important to be connected to people in public administration, definitely. And we can come back to that later, but here there's a big gap in terms of skills, experience, but it's not the biggest problem, probably, but you could confirm. So how to convince them? It's really by one more thing. It's always nice to show and to pitch with one project, okay? We all love it. But it's much better to come with what a colleague calls a portfolio of projects. I would be a policymaker at local, regional, national, EU level, having a social challenge, whatever it is, needs mobility or migrant integration in the labor market, and someone would come to me with a range of well-tested, innovative projects, showing to me different approaches and different ways to do it, that would be really interesting to me, even more than one single project. And that's why the calls that you are all launching now are a powerful tool, much more than funding one project here and one there. You've got calls, and when you, at policy level, because you are policymakers, because you have money, and if you have money, you have a policy impact, because what you decide to fund is really crucial. If you know what the challenge, what the burning needs are, and you prioritize them, and you say, okay, healthcare is really bad in my region, in my country. We launch a call on this, and we'll have 10 pilots in 3 years' time, or 2 years' time, or depends. That's interesting, and that gives you maybe some keys to reform then the whole policy, to expand on many regions, and to go step by steps. But this thing that national competence centers are going to support now also, to have several models, there's not one way, we all know that. So it's, I think you have in your hands a powerful tool with the ESF calls, really.
Okay. Ciprian?
Yeah. It depends, coming back to the question, untested or small-scale social innovation to be supported or implemented, I wasn't sure what's the verb there, by public authorities. So, first of all, it's very important to understand what public authority we're talking about, because there's public authorities that are complicated to convince, and public authorities that might be easier to convince. So a mayor or a city hall is easier to convince than to create a law. Two different stories, completely different stories. But talking to many of my peers who sometimes self-identify as social innovators, honestly, the first thing that we want from the state is to leave us alone. Period. And then second, to work with them, if possible, considering that we might actually have someone to work with. Because we sometimes might have, all of us might have this image that the state is functional. I'm sorry, it's not. There's some countries in which it is functional, but in many countries, it's not really functional. First, second, the people that you talk to, you want the support of the government, let's say, or the ministry, or you expect them to actually know the topic that you're talking about, or your solution, small and untested, but it's a high probability that they don't really know. Mm-hmm. So this is, but a solution, let's pick let's create, okay, how can you actually do this? Let's pick a small scale, untested, or slightly tested solution that can go into legislation. I think the best way is for the social innovator to really understand how the legislation process works. Because what I see many of my peers, sometimes including myself, we're really absent in understanding how the system works. If you are a ministry, let's say, and you have this social innovation X in healthcare, let's pick on that, right? And you have this amazing idea, and you think that all hospitals in Bulgaria or Denmark should do X. That requires money, usually. Financial resources that have to be taken from somewhere else. So you need to convince someone to be very convinced to fight internally for that money, let's say. So it's a very gray area. There is no, again, black and white answer. But again, the first thing that we feel is that we want the state to leave us alone, to not invent new legislation.
May I ask comments on that from Hannah as well?
I think that's true that it always takes time. And I think there are two issues here. One is to decide that you will go for social innovation, you will do something new. And I'm not sure whether it's a good question to Poland, because we never had the problem to decide on. We always had one man or one team that was fully persuaded that it would be beneficial for different policies, social policies that we support within ESF. And it's 80% of success. If you have such a team, if you have such one person that will be able to persuade others that are not so persuaded. And the second thing is in which areas we will go for social innovation. And it's, if you show the evidence, if you show the problem, if you show how it influence the other spheres of public policy, like, I don't know, education, health, it's much easier to go into this team, yes, and to decide that, yes, we will have some intervention that will test new solution in different areas.
Okay, okay. Shall we go to the second popular question? It's a political question. It's a delicate question, but since we're not hiding away from controversies here, let's read this one out loud as well. What's the future of social innovation in an increasingly nationalist and far-right Europe? Is there a social innovation solution to that threat?
Vote. Vote. Is it the most popular question?
It is. It is.
The second most popular.
Who wants to say? Who dares to say something about that?
I will. I'll start.
Yes.
Okay, I think, first of all, I don't think that social innovation is incompatible with far-right parties. Because they will just want to do innovation on other things. They will not want to do social innovation on integrating migrants, but they will be very happy to do social innovation on healthcare. So this is the first point that one has to, so I don't think it's by nature excluding social innovation, unless you consider that the far-right party are just super conservatives that don't want to change anything. But I don't think that is the case, because people vote them because they want to change. So we may be restricted for some areas, but I don't think it would be per se problematic.
Okay. Anyone else has thoughts on that?
Vote is a good answer.
In the world that I see, most social innovators are from the, let's call it, civic or private sector, and there's, of course, public sector. But let's pick on those a bit. When you have a country, a democracy, a flawed democracy, or that is run by a far right or even far left, but let's pick on far right now, government, especially for the NGOs that are doing social innovation, or the activists, it's really difficult. I'm not going to name the country, but it's in Eastern Europe, and you know what I'm talking about. And it's not Austria, Romania, or the countries around it. And it's difficult.
Yeah. Amal, do you have any experience in working with so many countries, with governments that are nationalist, far right, and what's your experience with that?
Well, we work with all governments.
That's why I'm asking.
And I mean, we haven't worked specifically with countries that have that sort of government on specifically social innovation. But what I can say is that I think this is what we have been seeing. There is an increasing interest, no matter what the government is, for solutions to resilience, to tackling problems that will never be solved, and we know it now, only by public action or by the market. And there is an increasing interest in leaving this space for people to experiment with their own solutions and everything, and then, of course, the public sector comes in through different ways, either funding or regulation, whatever. So, but I think that this is like a movement there is no going back, because in any case, no matter what, social innovation today is very important because of many reasons. If it's not for sustainability reasons, it's for social reasons. If it's not for also trying to create or carve spaces for instance, young people. There is, I mean, I think, and this is something we didn't talk about really today, that social innovation also is about bringing young people with their solutions. We know from research in the OECD that 1 in 5 young person
at least in EU and broadly in the OECD zone, is interested in a career with impact, something with sense. So, I mean, let's not, I think, underestimate also the fact that a lot of people are trying to create change through different ways, experiment in different things in different places. But again, of course, social innovation thrives where there are conditions for it to thrive. I pretty much agree with the fact that it's born out of necessity. So we were talking this morning, and I jokingly said, and I repeat it now publicly, that, for instance, the idea of microfinance couldn't have been born elsewhere than in Bangladesh for the reasons that a lot of people would understand here. So it's really, I don't think we should give up on things that people are doing.
Yes.
No matter what the color of the political party is.
I'd like to read out loud another question that's very popular and that's right in the core of why we're here these 2 days, and maybe could be a question for Armel, if that's all right with you. Wouldn't it be more efficient to put the money where the innovations already are, instead of asking every time to invent new ones to answer to a new call?
It's a good one. I think Ciprian started to answer the question this morning. Can I just say one thing about the previous question?
Of course.
Just one word, no.
Yeah.
My answer is no.
No?
No, it would be not impossible, but really difficult to fund social innovation with governments from extreme right parties. Voilà, that's all. And now, I think we can do both, but I think it's true the biggest weakness is really in the way we start things. They're really nice and then forgotten on the shelf. NGOs with no funding after 3 years, stopping something which is working well. And this is really a waste of time, of money, of resources. And something we maybe did not mention enough, a very big loss for end users. I don't like calling them like that, but the people who are benefiting from what we do, what we fund, what you all fund. The vulnerable groups, as we say, that's to me the most worrying thing when we don't use all the successful pilots, innovations, and experimentations that are working well, which means that transforms their lives and they're actually living and working better after the intervention than before. It is as simple as that. So yes, maybe more money, but it's not only a question of money, but definitely more use of what is existing and time and money to adapt it, even if we still need to support new ideas and new innovations, because also the pace of change is very rapid and all the time. So climate change is going to push us on the wall, is already doing so, and so we will surely need to invent new things all the time, but at least we can start from building also on what is existing. When I was talking about portfolios of projects on the same topic, imagine 10 innovators having worked on climate change. I mean, imagine the discussion between them and the kind of new projects that could result from these people talking together. And I'm talking about people, which is not very true. In fact, we should talk about organizations, because to me, any organization can be an innovator. Social services, public employment services. You can think of the most conservative organization you have in mind. At some stage, if you are in a constraint, if you're facing a problem, and if you're really concerned by it. I think that's another thing if you really want to solve the issue. The motivation, the interest, the dedication into the thing is key. Then you will become innovative, maybe for just one moment in your life. But that means that there's no social innovation, no social innovators per se. There are organizations and individuals that are more innovative than others. Some organizations that are doing that and only that through funds, incubators, accelerators, etc. To support you. Tomorrow you can maybe find something which is new in your organization, your work, your private life, and
Amal, you completely agree, I believe.
I agree, and we're working currently on two other major issues, which are, for instance, but in a different context than the EU, but always useful to look at. The issue, for instance, of informality. A lot of countries, including OECD countries, have issues with informality in activity and jobs, like Latin American countries. And there is, for instance, a country, Colombia more specifically, that's now experimenting something called the popular economy, which is basically looking into how grassroots have found solutions to give means to people to own a living and to survive. But this has been now recognized as part of the whole plan of Colombia to transform what's grassroots into something a little bit more recognized, a little bit more structured, using, for instance, in this case, social or solidarity economy and social innovation. So that's the first thing. The second, picking up on what Armel was saying, which is, for instance, public employment services. We're working also on that with the World Association of Public Employment Services. And this year we have a focus on what are the innovative solutions that come from, other parts of the economy and other organizations to provide job opportunities or training and everything. And we found that a lot of public employment services throughout the world in 77 countries work with organizations that work with difficult, what we would call either vulnerable groups or people who have been very far away from the labor market for many, many years, but they've brought them through ways that are not mainstream ways. And there are ways where public employment services work with these organizations, either to benefit from their experiences in training, mentoring, but also in creating job opportunities tailored for these groups. So what I'm trying to say is that maybe there's a lot more social innovation that we think that's happening out there.
Yes.
We just need to recognize that it has different, it can have different ways to be delivered, different ways to be amplified. And last but not least, I think we spoke a lot about, and I saw in the question scalability, but there's also the issue of replicability. What is replicable? So that speaks to the question of why don't we just use the money on things that work and then just replicate them. So that's another issue maybe to look into.
We have a question here also about accessibility. There are so many funds available, but there seems to be a bottleneck in accessing them. How can we close the gap in information and access? Armel, you recognize the question. Hannah as well.
Anna too.
Hannah,
yes. You want to
Hannah,
start,
please.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree with what was also said about this scaling thing and about. I like the idea Ciprian mentioned that we should go more into social implementators rather than social innovators. But I think the most challenging is what you mentioned in the question, that we are lacking the information on what could be scaled, and we should use this opportunity at EU level, and we could do it by different methods, I think. One is database, of course, but it's still something that is, you read and that's all you have. And I think there is a potential in community of practice, thematic community of practice, that they deal with social policy, integration in migrants, and they have this knowledge, and we can use this community of practice to see what are the projects, and their effects, and how we can take it and mainstream it.
Another question that's more or less related to that is perhaps funding of social innovation isn't the real problem, but rather that funding attracts professional applicants seeking to secure the existence of their organizations. Armel?
Yes.
And how can we tackle that? Is there
Not
a solution?
completely, because we're human beings and nobody's perfect. But no, but we noticed that, and in fact, this afternoon there will be a workshop we're organizing jointly with ALMA network, which is about scaling. And the examples that we were using demonstrated this, that it started on a voluntary basis at transnational level between a couple of countries who really wanted to solve the problem of these young people completely lost, using mobility as an excuse and a vehicle for social inclusion. Anyway, the point was that now that it's becoming something which is funded, and it's great, by ESF Plus under a call, and it's more structured, even though the framework conditions and parameters and all that had been seriously thought through, there's something which has disappeared. And there's an effet d'aubaine, we would say in my language, which is something which is you're attracted by the fund. And it's not enough. But I think it's the bias of any single grants and subsidy scheme, to be honest, and we'll never manage to.
Okay. Yes. Ciprian?
What if we reverse it? And instead of social innovators or NGOs, let's say in this case, apply for EU grants, what if the grant makers or grant givers look at social innovations around Europe and say, I want to invest in you. I think that what you're doing is very important, and I'm here almost like an investor, not in those terms, but still, I want to give you a grant after we go through some conversations and really understand if you need it and how on and so on. Because we also face this challenge of the professional applicants, let's call them, and we all know, not here, but we all know who they are. You can't really do anything because they're not doing anything wrong. So perhaps it's also a good moment to look at how the calls are made. Why? Because one of the reasons that, and I'm sorry I have to say this now and here, but one of the main reasons why a lot of us don't apply to many of these funds is because they are first highly bureaucratic, second, and I think we all say this, all right? Second, they are not always spot on the problem. This idea that if you employ people, you fix the problem is not enough. So the calls, I think, that require a redesign, some of them at least, because then, I mean, most of us know about these calls, but we don't go because it's too complicated or it's very narrow. It doesn't give you the freedom that innovation needs to have. Mm-hmm. We need to just, I don't need to call my management authority to change a budget line. It's
Short
my
comment from
money.
Armel maybe, or and then I'd like to. Yeah, no comment from you.
Yes. Do you want, Anna?
Yeah. As a civil servant, it's a very difficult question for me. But as a person, you're right. It's really difficult. And sometimes when I see all the requirements that must be, go through when you go for money, and then when you go to do your work during the project implementation, it's really challenging. But it's also on the other side, within the institution, it's also it's a kind of process that we should support you in this process, but it must be done with some rules that are known from the beginning. And there are some organizations that do not go for the money. because of that rules. And we are not able to change it. We could minimize the problem, but we are not able to change it.
Okay.
Just two things that maybe could be helpful. If the people designing the calls, like you, and I think you do that a bit in Poland, involve the end users, which is normally compulsory when you do social innovation. If you do that, you will not have many professional applicants, because involving the disabled people, the migrants, or the people representing these groups, etc., when you design the call, is something that is going to be useful, what is going to maybe better help you making it right. And the second thing would be, one day we need to involve and work with the audit organizations, because I think we need to probably have more adapted financial support to social innovation and social experimentation.
Yeah. I'm afraid that's what we have time for this morning, but I'd like to ask Ruth for some final comments maybe on what you've heard.
Thank you for this very inspiring panel. I bring home a few ideas, but also some points that have to be, that for me are quite important. As I said, first of all, I like the distinction between, let's say, social entrepreneurs versus process changing within and public administration, and versus sort of social innovation from civil society. And of course, they require, all three in a way require a different kind of financing. The idea, and I'm more focusing on the financing, on the main, what I said before, changing processes or priorities within a public administration, which may require changing of legislation, may require changing of attribution in budgets, but for me that is the final goal, that there is mainstreaming. Therefore, in that sense, a good social innovation that can be mainstream becomes sustainable, in the sense that if you can put it, you create a budget for it, and it becomes mainstream, the norm. And this has happened in the past. It's not that it's never happened. The most recent one is the housing first, which has become policy in many countries, but also, I don't know, investing much more in active labor market policies is 20 years ago, but it was quite a field change in a lot of countries, which were just giving unemployment benefits, but we're not, or asking also that people look for a job, but without any active support. So there is story of existing successful social innovation, which are very few out of a lot, which are not successful or anyway are not mainstreamed. And those need to be, so that is why from the beginning I said there is, and I think was said, the right to fail, and to create a safe space where you can experiment. I think this is very important. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, you have to keep the evaluation in mind, that you have to do evaluation, you have to do or impact assessment, and identify what is sustainable, can be changed or not. I think that's very important. Perhaps not conclusion, but linked to what we were just discussing now on the issue of accessibility to grants. This is a very recurring problem of Commission being too complicated for a lot of really good ideas to make it to the grants, because they're just complicated the way they are. But I cannot see a different, we can improve the procedures. We are aiming to simplify in the next MFF, but I'm sure it will still be complicated. I have to be honest, and certainly your model will never be possible, unfortunately, because we will always have to do a call, even though we can make it much simpler to access the call. I think we can work on that, but we will never be able to say, I see this fantastic innovation there, I'm just going to take it, because we will always have to have a competitive process. There's always a competition between member states. It's just not going to be possible for us to give money out like that. It may be more easy for national administration. I don't think so. It's even not for national administration easy to do that. But at the European level, we are never going to be able to do that. So what we can work on is on improving the
challenge acceptance.
Okay. But I take the challenge that we have to improve the way we do it. Or anyway, simplify. What now within the Commission we call simplify the journey for the beneficiary. So we're aiming at that, but it's never going to be the inversion, that, like you say. That's not a very good
Striving
conclusion.
for the ideal. Striving for the ideal
nice
is the goal.
Conclusion,
Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your answers, Ruth, Ciprian, Armel, and Hannah, thank you very much. So it is time for your lunch. You can head to the dining area for that and recharge for this afternoon's activities. And don't forget, from 1 o'clock onwards, that you can go and take a look at the social innovation market that takes place at the lobby, I think down here, but also upstairs, if I'm not mistaken. You will gather again for the workshops at 2 o'clock, where you can dive into the tailored workshops. You were assigned to workshops according to your preference in the registration form, and information about your assigned workshops is also on here on your badges in case you forgot. We hope, of course, that the sessions this afternoon will provide a great opportunity for hands-on exploration and more in-depth discussions on the topics of this year's agenda of the Social Innovation Forum. So I would say, enjoy your lunch, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see each other for the plenary tomorrow. Bye-bye.